possibly if people intervened at that point, if I would have talked to someone, it could have pulled me out of that. I don't know. It's tough to say.
Was that your first time trying crack? Will Harris, thank you for joining us today on Hope to Hustle. It's been a pleasure working with you over many years that we can dive into a little bit. I've had the pleasure of knowing you for 12, 13 years now.
Maybe a few more.
Yeah, crazy.
I know.
And look, here we are today.
Lots changed.
Yeah, a lot has changed. The pleasure of working side by side with you for BFR, and you're a huge asset to the organization, and you are an amazing counselor, case manager, interventionist, admissions counselor, all the things. You wear many, many hats. But I'm excited to share your story and your journey of what brought you here today, and being a huge member to our society and helping so many people and their families who are seeking guidance to getting better and recovering.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I feel the same way. It's been quite a journey, right? Going back to when we first met, comparatively to now. So we help a lot of people. Mm-hmm. That's a big purpose line.
You know what's funny, Will, and that we have a lot of different viewers and listeners, and you're one of those guys when you first meet you, and you just, even Ryan, my husband, when he first met you, I would be like, oh, there's this other side to Will that people don't know. You're so calm and collective, and I so much appreciate that. But I love the raw and the real Will that we get to see behind the scenes. And a lot of times it's actually quite shocking. I would say till this day, I look at you, and I've known you for many, many years, and I have a really hard time picturing your backstory.
Yeah. I
really do, because you help so many, and you're so knowledgeable and professional at times. And your stories are just mind-blowing to me that, I just can't picture it. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your story and what you've gone through and what your process was like to find recovery.
I will. And I appreciate it. I really try to keep things buttoned up from a professional standpoint. But at my core, I'm like still 18 years old. I love to have fun. I love to joke around. And I probably sometimes walk the line of, maybe what's appropriate and not appropriate. But we'll start, and I was born in Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C., Alexandria. I came from a middle-class family. My dad worked for Norfolk Southern, and I had a great life, right? Mom, brother, we did a lot of the things that, happy, suburban family would do. We moved from Virginia into Roanoke, Virginia. So that's the other side of the state. I believe I was transitioning into fourth grade, and then to Columbus, Ohio, my sophomore year, which with each move, in my development as a young man, things got more difficult, right? And especially moving out to Ohio, that's where I left a lot of the positive things that I had been doing in life behind and connected with people that were using drugs, partying. At that point, it was like pot, alcohol. But being in that group, and people talk about marijuana being a gateway drug, which I firmly believe it is. Not only open the door to, wow, I could take something and feel different and feel good, but it also put me into a group of people that were, they had access to other things.
Mm-hmm.
I think I went into my first treatment facility at 16, shortly after using and starting to use cannabis. I got arrested and I got charged with possession of marijuana. And, I was in an outpatient facility, not taking it serious at all, looking for any way to use that I could. And I should also back up and say that drugs became my identity at that point. They were the way that I connected with people. And at this stage in life, I was so insecure with myself, who I was, right? In a new place, et cetera, et cetera. Fast forward about a year, and things really hit a wall for me. I got introduced to opiates, and that.
How old were you?
I believe I was 17 at the time. I had a close friend, and Oxycontin had just been released, right? We really didn't know anything about it, only that it was this new miracle medication. My friend's uncle was prescribed Oxycontin, and apparently a large amount. So he would bring them into school by the handful, and we would take them, snort them, do whatever with them. So after a couple months of that, he got caught, and we got cut off. And so we were all sick and not exactly knowing what was going on, just knowing that we needed more. So we sought it out on the street, which eventually would lead us to heroin. From the time I was 17 up to, I believe, 22 years old, my life pretty much consisted of being either homeless, in treatment, or in jail. I believe I don't know if you want to say I completed, but I attended around 25 treatment facilities.
Wow.
And I could go into a lot of the craziness, being homeless in Arizona, being homeless in LA on Skid Row. I saw a lot of stuff. I did a lot of things that, I wasn't proud of. Drugs took me to my knees, like in every facet of the word. And truthfully, even when I got sober, I don't believe that I thought I was capable of that. So I'll talk about this because I think the success aspect is way more important than the bad stuff, even though the bad stuff's probably a little bit more interesting. Mm-hmm. But I believe this was the hand of cards I was dealt, right? I was a junkie. I was destined to be a junkie. My parents had offered me one last opportunity to go to California. And I came out to California, firmly believing like this was just going to be another treatment facility. It was a completely different program than what I had been in prior. Not the longest program, because at one point I think I did 13 months in a behavioral modification program, starting in Mexico and then transitioning to Montana. The big shift that happened for me, and it had partly to do with my family too, was I basically got cut off, no more support. And not to say they were supporting me a ton prior. I was kicked out of my house when I was 17 years old. But in California, being in a place I had no clue where I was, what was around, all I knew was this treatment facility that I'd spent 6 months in. They delivered the message that there's literally no more help. You can go from there to a homeless shelter and figure it out. or you could try to get a position interning. So I chose the latter. And probably about a month into that, I realized that that was my purpose, to help people in life, which in the present moment, I believe is such a fundamental part of treating addiction. Helping people connect with their purpose and understanding what that is. It doesn't mean you have to help other addicts, because there's a lot of people out there that don't, right? But having a purpose, having something that's driving you toward success is really fundamental.
I agree. Now, for me, I'm curious too, on your perspective, both of us are in recovery through different journeys. And I'm fortunate to say that, my rock bottom hit quick, same with the oxy, and quickly led to heroin. And I had a lot of fear of law enforcement and those legal consequences and jail. And it took me there. And I believe that, God knew I needed to go through that to get through this. Right. But I only went through one program. And I feel very fortunate for that, because as we both know, we see a lot of people go through it over and over and over again. And for you, going through that many programs, do you feel that was harder to find hope that you can get through it? Or did you feel that you grasped different things from different programs? Like, what advice would you give to somebody who's been through numerous treatment programs?
That's a really good question. I think with each opportunity going into treatment, there are things that we pick up, right? I know that was true for me. A lot of the experiences that I had in treatment, my motives weren't good, right? I didn't really have the intention of being sober. I had the intention of feeling better in the moment, right? Or a nudge from the judge, right? Like, there were legal implications for me a lot of the times. Or being homeless is hard. It gets lonely out there. Being on the street for as long as I was, I think it was about 5 years in total of being homeless in different areas, coming back, home after like a short stint in treatment, only to be booted again. It wasn't sobriety that I was after, right? It was a change in, my environment, the discomfort that I was in, which is a really important part for someone in addiction, right? When we're in addiction and we have support, we have people that are, helping us in some way, it allows us to keep going, right? The problem for myself was that as soon as I'd get through some treatment option, it was like all the comforts were handed back to me. And I was able to kind of slide back into life as I knew it before. And I wasn't ready for that yet. So I think every single opportunity in treatment, no matter if a person is, unwilling, resistant, they're going to gain something from it. Even if that something is making them think a little bit more about what they're doing. Treatment kind of messes up addiction, right? Like, it's not fun. For me, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be really honest in saying that being in addiction for me and being homeless, there was an aspect of that was really exciting and fun. I spent some time in Arizona, right? Which I would say is probably, one of the harder times I fell, right? I had 6-7 months of sobriety and a sober living in Prescott. And then got together with a girl. Knew I shouldn't have, but I did. And my heart got broken, which I think we touched on that aspect of my life in another podcast that we did. But I pretty much just hit the ground running, right? At that phase in my recovery addiction, I knew where things were headed. And so I didn't even try to go back to drinking or smoking weed or anything like that. I drove into Phoenix, and the first person I could find, in a bad part of town, I pulled over and asked for crack, which was and would become probably a stronger pull, a stronger addiction for me than heroin would.
Wow.
And I remember really vividly that experience where, I'm driving down in the hood. It's 2 a.m. This guy's walking down the street. No one else is out. I pull up to him. I'm like, hey, do you have anything? And he told me to get lost. So I wrapped around and I pulled up to him a second time. And I said, hey man, I really need help. Please help me. So he got in my car, handed me a pipe and told me to hit it. And I did. And that moment I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I know I'm going to stay here for as long as I can.
And you went into that sober.
I went into that sober. 8 months sober. Your
mind at all, were you telling yourself after, numerous tools and programs that you've attended, did you sit there and contemplate it the entire drive, or you just instantly, that was your focus?
I think on the way down, because it's about a 2-hour drive from Prescott into Phoenix, I had a lot of kind of internal pull back and forth. But the minute I got in my car, and this is how my addiction worked and works, the minute I made the choice, it was over for me. Mm-hmm. The minute that the idea came into my head, it was over for me. And so no matter, what, possibly if people intervened at that point, if I would have talked to someone, it could have pulled me out of that. I don't know. It's tough to say.
Was that your first time trying crack?
No.
Okay.
No, I had smoked crack before. Crack cocaine got a hold of me. Probably 18 was the first time I smoked. And so, doing heroin and crack simultaneously was kind of like what I would do, right? Smoke crack to get high, take heroin to come down, and then rinse, repeat. So as far as my internal struggle goes, in that moment, I had a one-track mind, right? And it was, I'm going to get this done. And that was really my experience in any area that I landed in, right? Was if I want it, I'm going to get it. It doesn't matter where I'm at, doesn't matter who's around. If I fixated on that thing, I would go get it. And it was really, anybody that's ever used crack cocaine and become addicted to it, the mental and psychological pull that it has on you is stronger than anything I've ever experienced before. I mean, now I could say that having kids and children really keeps me grounded, right? Knowing that I could lose all of these things I've built for myself. And it's been such a long time, it's like, I don't even know if I could tell you exactly what it feels like anymore.
Right. That's how I feel. And it's interesting that you say that when you really want something, you're going to get it. And I don't know about you, but for me, I had that mentality, and I still feel like I do with everything that I do in life. If I have I've geared it towards goals and success, but that fixation is still there. If I have an idea or a goal, I get fixated, and it's going to happen until the thought and the vision becomes a reality.
Right.
And I feel like and at times I even say that's still addict behavior. It's the behavior that causes one to use substances to, cover or mask whatever it is that we're feeling. And you said it exactly how I would, is as children and everything we've built for ourselves. And it is I forget what it's like to even feel that way, but I'm glad, because I remember the days that I couldn't stop thinking about it. And now it's, the thought doesn't even come through my mind. It's like, I remember the days and I talk about it almost on a daily basis, but that actual feeling, I'm so glad that has left. And now I just look back at the crazy stories as well as all the consequences that came along with it and think, how did I even enjoy any of that?
Right.
When there's so much gratitude today and what life is, not having to wake up fixated on how I'm going to get high and how I'm going to get a fix, how I'm going to come up with $5, how I'm going to convince somebody to just give me a hit or give me a shot of dope. It's so freeing to wake up every single day with not needing anything.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've taken that characteristic and turned it around for the good?
Definitely.
That characteristic of, getting what you want, making it happen. So I think we all have that kind of innately in us, right? Maybe not necessarily the drive. Everybody has the drive to be extremely successful or whatnot. But the same tendencies we have as addicts, right? We can use those to empower ourselves. I see so much in treatment facilities, in my practice, working with clients, where these things about themselves that they feel like are so bad, so negative, right? But we're able to find the positive side of that, or the way that could empower them, right? Versus trying to suppress that personality trait. I mean, right now, and I'm sure you could attest, this is what has attributed to most of my success is not giving up,
right?
Being relentless with going after what we want to go after,
right? Always finding a way when it's so far out of reach, you are broke, you have nothing, and you still figure out a way to get it, right? And I feel like now in our careers and with that, having that mindset, you're chasing success, and it is it's that drive, it's the it's almost like the competition of it,
right?
To see am I going to be able to succeed at this? Am I going to be able to keep going with this? And it is. It's I feel like there are so many, especially opiate addicts. The way that our minds operate and those endorphins that we're constantly needing to feel and get that instant satisfaction.
Yep.
Is part of why we see a lot of them become very, very successful when they overcome their addiction.
Oh my gosh. There's a lot. Taking risks now, it looks a lot different, right? I'm not driving into a bad part of town where I'm a minority and, I could get shot or whatever the case might be. But that feeling, right, of and you talked a little bit about it, taking a huge risk, being broke, having something that's so far out of reach, yet we're going to go after it. We're going to get it. It's the same feeling. It's the same rush. And in addiction, we become dependent on that lifestyle.
Right.
The excitement of it.
Right.
All the crazy stuff that we do. But again, it's just turning that around, using it for good.
Yeah. And some people might be listening thinking well, that just sounds like a crash and burn,
Totally.
and it could be, but it's it is that rush. My mind operates that way. It needs that. If it's at a standstill and I'm not chasing something that is giving me that satisfaction and that rush on a daily basis, then I start worrying about myself. Right. That's where the depression and anxiety can start sinking in. So for me, I love seeing a day full of a million things. And then when I need to take that day off and I need to relax, I feel like it's very, very well deserved. Right. I don't feel lazy at all. I don't feel like I should be doing something else. I feel like what I'm doing is exactly what I should be doing to fuel myself up to go back out and do it all over again.
Yeah. We're all different. Some of us share more similarities than others, but we all kind of have to figure out what that looks like for us. You talked about listeners kind of looking at this behavior, right, or lifestyle, and maybe thinking that's a crash and burn. And it could be for some people, I mean, it's taken over a decade. Right. To get to this place. I had to learn first to cope with how I felt, my discomfort, just be with myself and start to peel back the layers of who are you? Right. What are you? I had to get honest. That was such a fundamental part for me in recovery. I lived for so long lying. And not being transparent, that I'd almost developed this shell, right, of who I thought I was. And as soon as I started stripping some of those things back, getting honest, it was like I started to reconnect with that inner child again. Right. And I knew joy again in my life. Whereas it had been years since finding that freedom.
Right. And I feel like that's something that we try to, share and educate our clients as well as their families is you have to do the work. How many times do we hear, I just need to get a good job that I like? But you said it perfectly. We had to do the work. We had to learn to just be there comfortably with ourselves in a very uncomfortable situation. And I don't know that a lot of people even realize how hard just that part is. That part was wanting to crawl out of your skin and freak out every second of the process and not even confront that. Yeah. I mean, you and I have very similar experiences with our recovery journey and process and what our program and treatment look like. That was very successful for the both of us. And, just sitting there trying to be okay with me in my own head and my own thoughts in a room of either silence or chaos was really, really challenging. But if it wasn't for that experience and gaining those tools and peeling back those layers of finding out who I am, and no matter what is going on around me, I feel has contributed to being successful today. Because no matter how hard it gets, no matter how many families want to threaten me because they're sick with their own issues and their addiction in their household and they want to blame somebody, right? We're all guilty of it. My family wanted to do the same thing and go after all the drug dealers with my mom with hangers after them, Right. I get it. I understand that. But we sit here and we are a punching bag for a lot of people. And that is really hard. That has taken a lot of growth and independent work to be able to sit there comfortably and face that and deal with it when it's a very uncomfortable situation, and to sit there and be like, I can do this. And if I can get through addiction, I can face any life challenge. Tomorrow's a new day. Right. It will get better with time and go into solution mode.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's so challenging. Right. And a lot of the times, all that is, it's, a family, an individual, they're projecting their pain onto you or onto me or onto someone else. Whether they're not ready yet to take their own ownership and say, I did this, right? Or not, it's just a projection. But for us, That's one part that's never going to get easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even to this day, it still shakes you to your core.
100%.
I'm doing everything I can to help you.
Mm-hmm.
I just woke up last night at 12:30, took your phone call. You were, you know, upset. And today it's my fault, you know? So, but we carry on,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we trudge on.
Right.
And it's the purpose, right? Doing something. I mean, my belief, and, you know, for what it's worth, I think this work is one of the most important fields that we have. Drug addiction, and especially now with fentanyl, it is such a deadly, you know, I mean, it takes everything from you.
Mm-hmm.
And to have people out there that are willing to dedicate their lives to helping people through it, you know, even though they have to come back again, whatever it is. It's more important than some politicians.
Yeah. I
Truly.
100%. Well, we're up against them.
I know, that's true.
We're trying to fight a battle that they have more control over with less passion about than us. And we are trying to make a difference in that so that we can save other people, because we know that it's possible because we've done it.
Right.
Well, before we close out here, Will, I wanted to just ask, what is one piece of hope that you hold on to when times get tough, whether that's a quote or a saying, book, song?
I think that what I've learned is, you know, doing the right thing no matter what, things are always going to work out. So even in the face of adversity, those are the times that I like to lean in even more, right? As I start to feel disconnected, whatever it might be, we just have to do the next right thing.
Love it.
So,
well, thank you, Will. I appreciate you coming on, and thank you.
Thank you.